Hey lighting people, I have exciting news to share. If you missed the update from MA, GrandMA3 version 2.3 is available as of this morning. There's some videos from MA Lighting on YouTube showing a few things. We have access to the release notes, but I decided to make a video showing you my top 10 favorite updates, and later at the end I will tell you about some of the bugs that I have seen that have already been discovered by people in the online community, and hopefully that will help you to get an idea of whether you should or should not update at this time. Currently, I am not using GrandMA3 in any live settings. I'm only using it on my PC, so I felt comfortable updating, testing everything out, and showing you how it works. As always, I will provide the information for you so you can make your own decision. Alright, to start off with the first update, this is a pretty minor one, but I feel like it is hugely valuable. Obviously, I'm going to start with something relating to Lua programming because that is one of my favorite things about MA3. The plugin pool now has an option to set the pool action to toggle. Yes, this is new, even though it seems so basic. And one of the best things about this is the fact that oftentimes when you're testing plugins, you will have a plugin that isn't working and it just runs endlessly and you have to go hit off and tap the plugin, or type off plugin, whatever, in the command line. And in this case, you just have to click the plugin again and it will turn off. I am very excited for this update. It is a little quality of life thing, but it's going to be very helpful. Another side note I will make at this point is this white outline here around the selected pool object has gotten narrower. It previously was a lot thicker, and they've just changed how wide that outline is, and that applies to everything. The command line, just every kind of thing that gets highlighted with a white outline when it's selected. It's now a narrower white outline. This takes some getting used to, but I think it's going to be a good thing overall. I've always felt like the white outline was just absurdly thick, and so I think this is a cool update overall. The second real update that I'm going to talk about is in the command line for your macros and anything else. Anytime you are creating a command, we now have the option to toggle on create handle. And when you do this, you can do, for example, go exec 201, hit enter, it turns it into a handle. And this will only do it with whatever the last one is in your command line when you press enter. So that gives you some flexibility if you want some to be handles and some to not be handles. And it doesn't turn it into a handle unless you press enter. So very helpful. And I know a lot of people are going to love that one. The next update I'm going to talk about is in the sequence pool. Again, this is kind of minor, but it's a big deal to me. I always keep my sequence pool action set to select. In the past, clicking on an empty sequence pool item stored an empty object, and it was tremendously annoying, but now it just gives me an illegal object message and doesn't do anything. So you actually have to manually store and then select, which I think is a huge improvement because it's just annoying if you go tapping in the sequence pool by accident and it just creates sequences. So this is a nice quality of life update as well. Update number 4. There's a thing called Executor style that you can now apply to your sequence pool, and it looks like this. It shows you your sequences just like as if they are executors, with the name at the top and the cues. And if you play one back, go plus, it shows you a blue bar just like it does with the executor. I absolutely love this. I think it's going to be majorly helpful. And even though these look like regular executors, clicking on them still applies the function of whatever your default function is. And gotta love it how it shows the selection instead of an outline as it does on the executor. This also works in layouts, which is pretty cool. I don't have any sequences assigned to layouts right now, but I'm going to go ahead and do that so that we can see this. I'm going to assign this to 5. And now it is assigned here. And if we click on edit layout, it pulled it up in a different display. So I'm going to change this. Now I can change executor style here. And it shows, now this is a very small executor, so let me actually change the size. We're going to change it to, let's make it good and big so we can really see what it's doing. 300 by 300. And there we go. And it shows the appearance behind it, but you could get rid of that. So this is going to do much the same thing as in the sequence pool, but the default action is still go plus, and you can still change that. Anyway, that is definitely very useful as well. Update number 5 is the big one that I see everyone talking about, which I also am very excited about. We are going to talk about the assign menu, which has changed at this point. So the entire layout has changed. If you haven't seen it, spoiler, here is how it looks. So we go to handle and everything is completely different than what we're used to. Whatever you clicked on originally is the default selected object. You can change the selection by clicking on a different object, and whichever one is selected gives you these options over here to enter a custom command, to select the function. I kind of like how you don't have to open a drop-down menu to do this. You can just click on any of these and it immediately does it. And this functions for whatever you currently have selected. So I select the button press, select the encoder. It shows me the options for what I have selected. And you can also change it for each of these separate different types of button actions up here. And these will function as you're used to by opening a pop-up with a right click. And it's finally here, you guys. We have the option to fire a command or use a function on the release of the button. So this is when I press the button, it applies go minus in this case. I don't actually like that. Or wait, MA plus go plus, sorry, is MA plus button is go plus. And I just learned that for myself. Clicking on this also affects which one you're seeing. So the button press should be go plus. I don't want an MA button press. And then this right here is, yes, we can assign a function for button release. So I can go plus and then I can add a command, or I can add an off or whatever I want. And this one right here is for MA and button release. Very cool. I haven't yet figured out how I'm actually going to use this button release functionality in my workflow, but I know it's going to be really nice to have. And once I figure out the best way to use that, I will definitely be utilizing it. Another cool thing with this assign menu is whenever you have an executor selected, you can drag these handles to adjust the size. Now you can't adjust it over other ones, but you can adjust it up and down in this case. Let's see. If I can't unassign this, huh? I guess I could do delete and tap it. Nope, it doesn't like that. Okay, so you can't unassign in here. But I can do it that way, and I can click on this one again. And then theoretically I could move it there. You can also grab this and move the executor. Oh, apparently you have to have it the right size before you can move it. There we go. Now I can drag it to the side. I can drag it back here. This is really cool. I definitely like this new layout. It is very different looking than what we're used to, but I think it's going to be a lot more intuitive in the long run, and once we get used to it, it's going to be really nice. Another super cool thing with executors is that you can actually change the encoder resolution. Yes, let's go. This has been something people have been wanting forever. You can change the step size from 0.01 to 100%, and you can even invert the encoder if that is what you want to do. So I'm very excited about this one as well. I think it's going to help a lot of people in a lot of ways. Now I'm going to move on to talking about recipes. As a side note, I'm going to show you one thing real quick. So I turn my recipe editor on. Let's go to presets and great. The way I have my PC laid out is not the most ideal for showing everything on one screen, but suffice it to say, I am selecting my wash lights, and now I'm going to select a preset, and it gave me this dotted moving line. If I select another one, this one turns solid and this one gets a dotted moving line. And so you see it always has this dotted moving line around whichever one is the most recently selected. This is the one that you can apply a matrix to. So any matrix you change are going to apply to the one with the dotted line. So that is very helpful. It's kind of, I mean, it's not a huge thing. It's really just a UI thing because the functionality is not any different than it was. But I do think having that indicator is really useful. So definitely love that. Now, update number 6 is going to be also related to recipes, and I'm going to select my washes, and Now I'm going to go ahead and select a preset, and back to here, you can change the selection to be from value. With a selective preset, this just means that every fixture to which this value can apply is going to be used instead of a group. Now, this could be very useful if you store a preset using fixtures that you don't have in a group. That way you don't have to use the group to select them. You can just do this from value. I'd actually be curious now if this means that we can select presets without selecting a group first, but it does not. So you still have to start with selecting a group before you can select a preset, but then you can change the selection to from value, which is pretty cool. Update number 7. We're going to start storing some things into a sequence. I'm going to create a new sequence and select it, and I'm going to start storing some values just for fun. And I'm going to, for the sake of ease, not pull up every view on this monitor, but I'm selecting my washes. I'm going to apply a dimmer preset, and I'm going to store in Q1. And now I have a Q1. Now, we can use plus and minus relative to the current queue, and we can use next and previous relative to the current queue. So here's how this works. I have one queue, I'm going to go plus, now my one queue is active. So these relative values are going to be relative to the queue that I have active. Okay, now let's say I select my spots and I give them a value. Let's tilt them and give them a zoom value. All right. Now I'm going to want to store this in Q2, but actually I'm in the middle of programming a long queue list. Use your imagination for this. I'm in the middle of programming a long queue list and I don't know which number I am, or I don't feel like typing in the number. And so I just want to store in the next queue after this one. Okay. What do? I can actually do it like this. I'm going to type store queue plus, enter, and it's stored Q2. Now I have a Q1 and a Q2. Let's say I want to store some values into the queue in between these two. Well, I can do that too. Store Q plus. And it confirms that it's going to store to 1.1. I hit store, and there you go. It has stored a queue at the next decimal point before this one. And it would continue finding a smaller decimal point in between these. And if I were on this queue and I did it, it would do 1.2 and so on. Very helpful. You can also do this with the queue before. So you can do like store queue minus, and it's going to store to Q.9. So very helpful. This is going to make programming way faster, more simple, less brain work, thinking about which queue, typing out the exact queue decimal. All that stuff can be kind of annoying when you're in the middle of programming. This is going to make it faster and easier, and your numbers will all stay right in order. So love that. Another thing that you can do is, as I mentioned, prev queue and next queue, or actually I guess I should say queue next and queue previous, because that's how you would write it. So let's say I put a value in and I want to store this in a queue. I can do store queue next, and it's going to store into the next existing queue, rather than store queue plus is going to create a queue in between queues. Store queue next is going to go into the next currently existing queue. And likewise, we can do store queue previous, and it's going to store into Q.9. I feel like these are definitely going to be a very, very nice change, and I'm really looking forward to using this in programming regularly. Now, update number 8 is going to be related to filters, and this is one of those major updates that they made that is really a big deal, but I have never really used filters, like, at all. So this isn't something that I was super excited about at first. And then I started looking at it and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to start using filters now actually. But suffice it to say, this isn't something that I've looked into a whole ton yet, but I'm going to show you what I do know. So they've added these other filters in here, and I don't know why this is grayed out. I'll be so for real. That part I do not know. Wait, it's because of edit recipe. All right, I learned a new thing. You can't apply filters while edit recipe is active, but these filters are brand new default ones that they put in there, and they let you have these cool new filter rules. Apparently they've changed this menu. I don't remember what it looked like before because, like I said, I never really used filters, but they have added selection only and parked only and such different kinds of cool filters. They added this rule sets thing where you can have different sets of rules, and you can have filters that are like dynamic, such as changed, cooked, DMX tested, fade and delay, if active, if output, if programmer live, MIB, multi-step parked, selected, selected feature, used in object, used in selected sequence, or used in show. These are really cool. I'm sure of that, but I don't fully understand exactly what they all do. I may make another video later on talking about all these things in detail, but I'm not ready to do that yet. I know used in object is pretty cool because you can define a target, group, world, preset, or sequence. And if you have a filter and you say assign a group filter, edit, it has created a used in object using that group as the object. So that's really fun. I definitely cannot wait to get into how these filters are actually working and all the cool ways that they can be used, because I think this is going to be a pretty significant change to a lot of people's workflows, maybe even my own. Okay, update number 9 is preset pool colors. It has been a little bit of annoyance to me personally, at least, how all of the presets default to this color. Every preset pool, every time you open it, always defaults to this color. All of them are the same. Why can't they just be different? Of course, I stored my views with them being the colors I wanted them to be, and I did pick colors somewhat similar to MA2 in a lot of cases, because that's what I was used to. But why on earth are they all the same default color to begin with? Now, they do default to this color, but you can also change it. So if we go to Desk Lights and Color Theme, Edit, we can find a, let's see, is it under here? It is not. It is Pool Window. Under Pool Window, we can change the defaults. Yes, all of the presets are defaulting to this, except I already changed Gobo when I was playing with this. But you can change the preset defaults, and then when you open that window, until you custom change it, it will be defaulting to this color, whatever this color is. So that's going to be a fun quality of life thing where you can just set a color theme and your preset pools will stay that color. I do love that because it makes building new views with the right aesthetics that I want a lot easier. And I know the rest of you will probably also love that. All right, now the last update, update number 10, is the ability to disable MIB per fixture type attribute. For this, we're going to go into the patch and we're going to look at fixture types. I will go with the 6+ bar L, edit, and you can go to your DMX mode. I use this one, edit, and now in here we have the option for MIB. We have this MIB column. You can disable MIB for any attribute. I don't remember how I was wanting this recently, but there was an instance recently where I was like, man, if only I could just make it not MIB this one attribute. And I'm going to hopefully get back into the workflow with MA3 soon and figure that out again and put it to use. But I feel like this could have some pretty nice applications that I probably haven't thought of, and I would definitely be interested in hearing how you guys are using them. All right, those were my 10 updates, but I do have a bonus I want to talk about, and that is the command line symbols right down here. This is telling me that blind is on, which I didn't do that intentionally. Now it's off. This symbol is gone. We can see in our command line now whether we have highlight, low light, solo, and blind on, among other things. And it also tells us if edit recipe is active. That's definitely pretty cool. That's not such a huge big deal, What is a big deal to me is seeing things like blind being on, because especially if you're on a PC, you can't see that stuff real easily. So being able to see that in the command line is a pretty nice thing. All right, we've gone over the updates, and of course, this is not even anywhere near all of the updates that they've put in this version. There are some other very cool things as well. These are just basically my favorites, the ones I have already played with a little bit, but definitely read the release notes and see what else there is. I'm going to tell you about the bugs that I have heard of so that you can be prepared in case you're considering updating as to what kinds of things you might run into. Several of the bugs I've heard of or run into on my own include macros editing a matrix not working. This is likely because of a matrix being updated in this version. So if you are using macros that play with a matrix, you might want to make sure all of those are working because they might require some changes. Another thing is I've had some UI issues with, like in the recipe editor, opening the menu for the selection. Obviously I did that in this video and it worked in that case. Sometimes the window goes kind of all over the place and you can't see all of the groups and you can't scroll. And when this happened to me, I did try searching for a specific group and the screen just kind of went crazy. I had to close every window and then it worked again. That was a little bit of a problem. I've also heard of people using a custom color theme having issues with like the sequence pool not showing up properly. So that could be an issue if you use custom color themes. Be prepared that you might need to re-edit from the default instead of being able to use your old one. And another problem I've heard of is timecode skipping queues. And the person that was talking about this was not actually able to find a solution in like 45 minutes of troubleshooting. It was clearly a problem where timecode was just not referencing things properly. Another thing is 3D view being kind of weird in some cases, and I don't know what it was exactly, like shadows of lights in places where there were no lights, and just it looked pretty bizarre. So be aware that you might have some issues with the 3D view. That is all I have from the recent update. I may post another video in a few days with more information. I'm not quite sure. I am kind of busy, but if I have a chance, I might do another video on filters. Definitely go ahead and let me know in the comments what your favorite feature is from this update and if there's anything else you would like to see me commenting on. But I will see you in another video at some point, and I hope you have a great week and happy programming.